I want to talk a little bit about a process that I went through yesterday and last night, and just reflect a little bit on how profound it was, but also like the mechanics of it, and what gave me the profound experience and breakthrough that I've waited my whole life for. And it was following our all-day online retreat thing that me and a group of friends and fellow practitioners just put together, and we did a bit of deep work, and then did some deep work the day after. We've been doing the Wim Hof method, playing with microdosing psilocybin as well, and it's all of it just combined together has just been bringing up lots of stuff. And yesterday was a day where we started off with the Wim Hof method, which is like yoga, breath work for those of you that don't know, and meditation. So started off that way as normal, and then not long after that, I think I had a cup of cacao, a drink of cacao, and not long after that, my body went into its Kriya mode, which is the automatic movements that are a result of the Kundalini activation. And generally what these Kriyas are, for anyone who doesn't know, is your body moves kind of in yogic postures and kind of stretches and things like that. And what it's doing is it's clearing your meridians and energy pathways, and unblocking blockages in the body, and controlling the breath, eye movements, lots of, like this, like really, really deep eye kriyas or eye movements where the eyes really shift around and do that unconscious work. And at one point I was upside down up against the like a pillar, like a pole thing, which you can kind of see in the background there, like this thing. I was kind of upside down up against that, and it was a good day for it. But I've been having this pain in my neck, and in the middle of one of the kriyas there was some sort of Tai Chi looking or Qigong thing happening as well. And at one point something twisted in my left knee and it cracked, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, I couldn't put any weight on my left leg, and it was like my knee was out of place or something. And then a lot of light language came through, and strange things like my hand moving around my knee and doing strange things like a kind of an energy operation on it. And then I just felt pulled to go into the bedroom. My partner was here in the living room, and I went into the bedroom, kind of limped a little bit, and I just laid down on the bed. And the reason I did that is I kind of, I felt pulled to, I kind of was guided to do that, but I kind of thought the movements were going to carry on in bed. But what happened instead was I just released loads. I just bawled, cried, released loads and loads of stuff. But as that was happening, these pains were flaring up like so much. It was so painful. And and in that real peak state, I was really, really in that high, intense emotional deep feeling, really connected to my heart. Anyone who's cried any time recently or has cried a lot or has cried deeply will know that in those moments how connected you are to your heart space. It's like this huge release. It's all about the heart, And in that state, I just reached out to something bigger than me, and I was like, you know what? I need help for this thing, whatever it is, these pains, whatever's causing them. With all the inner work I've done, it's like to not know why this pain is there, or for it to not be resolved yet. I've had glimpses of it seeming to be resolved, and then it comes back, and I was just like, I'm doing everything that I know of, and I know quite a lot of different techniques, and I implement a lot of stuff, and I have done for quite a while. So I kind of just surrendered. I was like, I can't do it. And from that space, it was very much like a please, but at the same time a very deep knowing that it was being heard, that something was going to change as a result of that happening. And then literally within probably an hour or 2 hours of that, it all came together. I asked Emma, my partner, to do a guided meditation, which is not something she's done before, and she did a little guided meditation for me. And she's just a really, really gifted intuitive healer. She was putting her hands on me in a very specific way, touching me in a very specific way, and tapping on certain pressure points, parts of my body, and I was releasing and releasing and releasing, and my body then began to do more of the movements itself. And at one point, it kind of twisted here and pulled out, felt like pulling out an arrow, or something like something going through like a rod, and it pulled out, and my arm just dropped. And as that happened, I released loads and loads and loads of trauma. And then it was at that point when I turned around or it was somewhere around that point, I turned around and realised she'd left the room. And I was like, what? Where's she gone? I thought she was in the middle of and when you've been doing this work for a while, you kind of, when I got really triggered, I felt really abandoned, like really left in the middle of something really deep and profound. And I was like, what what could have happened? And I could hear her running a bath, and I was like, that's it. I felt this wound, right? This trigger. Luckily, when you've been doing this work for a while, you go, okay, perfect. This is my opportunity now to go in and find out what this is all about. And it all just came together. And it went back to, it showed me really far back now to being a child, being really little, and realising that I was never ever held all the way to safety. Like when you were experiencing trauma as a child, and and mum or dad will come and hold you, or your carer will come and hold you until you feel better, or until you're all the way back to normal, to safety, back to love. And I realised that never in my life have I ever had the experience of being held all the way back to being okay. It was always cut short by whatever reason. This is where I was at the moment, so I started to write these little things down as they were coming to me, and this process deepened, and it started to show me how this had been evident in my whole life, never asking people for help, because if I did, then I was putting it out there for them to help me, and they might not hold me all the way, in which case I would feel rejected and abandoned. So it was better to not ask for help than to get half of help and then be abandoned. And the other thing was, as a child, it was showing me that I would always, my mum's love and her resources ran out before I got all the way there. Otherwise, she would have held me all the way there. But she didn't have the resources. She didn't know what to do. I was very sickly. I was maybe crying a lot. I was maybe in, I don't know, some sort of suffering, and I can just remember that pure, like, exhausted, irritated helplessness, that look of, I don't know what else you want me to do, I can't do anything else. And I do recall that sentence being said, I don't know what else you want me to do, I'm trying my best. And that face, that look, and what that actually did to my nervous system was, and to my fragile mind as a child, was to take me to a place of, I shouldn't ask for more, and I'm not deserving of more. More enough. There's never enough. It was like the real deep message. There is never enough. There's not enough love. There's the amount I need to get me all the way back to okay isn't available. And to ask for that causes a lot of pain to the other person, or to the people I love, if we're generalising it. And so what I would do to prevent that pain from happening to people that I cared and loved about, to other people, would be to seem okay sooner than I was okay. To put on a brave face before it was over. And what it was showing me is that collectively across my entire life has all been stored in my nervous system and my body, and it's just never ever found its way all the way back to okay. And this, it started to join all these dots. I'm not going to go into all the dots, but like I say, not reaching out for help, never fully committing into a relationship and giving myself fully, never fully surrendering into life, because obviously this, your relationship with your mum is your relationship to life, is something that I believe quite deeply and that I've experienced myself. And for me to surrender myself to my mother and then her to leave as a child obviously meant I'd surrender and I'd just keep falling, because the person wasn't there to catch me. They didn't have the resources. There weren't enough. And so this is another pattern, finding it difficult to fully trust and surrender. So what came as a result of all this process was the realization that, looking back through the relationships of my parents and their parents, I can very much see that love wasn't expressed. My parents were never held properly held until they were all the way okay, and so their parents' limitation was passed on to my parents' limitation of helplessness, of a limit. And what I then realised is, I've been saying for quite a while that and this came up doing some deep inner work stuff, and it was like, what is my life really about? And I realised it was just about always expanding my own capacity to love, expanding my capacity to love. And then that again fed into this. I realised that's why, because the limitations on our capacity to love, when our perceived love runs out, what we think is love, when that runs out, then our resources are exhausted, and our children, everything beyond that they want to express, that we can't find the resources within ourselves to accept and hold, that creates the shadow side of the child, that creates the inner conflict and the suffering in the child later in life. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. It's completely natural, completely organic. It's just how life is. Nobody's to blame, nobody's at fault. And what I realised as well was, like, all these patterns were coming up, but I realised that is also the very, very root cause of all my constructive patterns. The patterns of self-care, the patterns of wanting to help others, the patterns of wanting to expand my capacity to love, my patterns of wanting to embrace the person I'm with and hold them and be that space, and to continually connect with my soul, knowing that that's where real love lies, is deep within. So it was absolutely perfect, in every direction. It gave me all the right traumas to do all the right work, to give me all the right gifts, to live in alignment with what I believe my soul, my true self, really, really desires. And to make this useful to you, the reason I'm actually sharing this, it's not just to share a nice story, but it's to say it's the place you ask from that gets the answer. Yeah, I think you could from the mind go, okay, show me this, okay, show me this, and not get anywhere. But when you're really connected to your heart, like you are in those moments of really high spiritual vibration, excuse me, really deep pain, crying, laughing, all those, those really intense feelings that really connect you to your heart. It's in those moments when you ask the question in those moments and you know that it's been granted, that's when you're going to get the answer. And I can't actually believe how quickly it came. It was literally in a couple of hours. I've waited my whole life for this answer. And then what also came from it was me realising, wow, so this problem that's been passed on and on and on and on, it does definitely end here, because I'm very aware that my resources to offer someone else really are not limited in that respect, because the lack of money or lack of freedom or lack of health or lack of anything, all my sickness were all based on this same pattern. All these areas in the life that were not enough health, not enough wealth, not enough freedom, not enough of whatever, not enough resources, not enough time, were all just projections of the initial wound, which was there's not enough love. And I just applied that not enough to everything. And that includes I am not enough, which again sends a lot of people on a journey to discovering their very deep innate gifts and talents, because they feel like you're not enough, so you have to dig, and then you find the stuff. So again, it's all a gift. The journey it unravels and unpacks your gifts for you and hands them to you on a silver platter, and when you know exactly what to do with them. So that's just a little story that I want to share, that is to encourage you to connect to your heart, because maybe you don't need to be crying your eyes out or in some blissful spiritual connective moment that might be come through like doing a practice. What if we're just connected to it all the time, as much as possible? What if we make that connection our most important connection to the heart, so that when we do ask for things, it's automatically coming from that place, because that's where we're living from. And to cultivate that relationship, that's the message that I'd like to get out. Cultivate the relationship to the heart, and just watch how much more quickly things move. When you cry and when you feel these releases coming up, dive into it, dive fully into it, and use that connection to let go and to learn and to grow and to ask for that which you really truly want. But remember to know that it's been given as well once you've come from that place. I hope this helps somebody. Have an amazing day. Take care. Much love.